Alrighty, so it's time to look ahead to next month's game releases, and get a look at the new titles coming in August 2025. From mafioso prequels to remasters and remakes, it feels like we're a little bit slim on brand new games in August, but there's still some pretty slick remakes, remasters, and reimaginings on the horizon. As usual, this isn't every game coming out next month, rather it's just 10 personal selections, so if you think there's some glaring omission here, please do let me know in the comments below so I can know what's on your radar. But for now, let's kick this off with an old school throwback, with Gradius Origins releasing on August 7th for PS5, Xbox, Switch, and PC. And this collection will feature 18 versions of Gradius across all 7 arcade titles, including the first ever appearance of Gradius 3 AM Show version on home consoles. Which, I actually had to look up what AM Show means, and apparently that refers to Amusement Machine Show, and is a prototype build of the game showcased at the Amusement Machine Show in Japan in 1989. Aside from just being a veritable treasure trove of Gradius history, it also has a range of quality of life improvements like save states, rewind, and invincibility features. There's also a training mode that should let you adjust settings like restart points to better train up your skills if you're rusty or just new to the genre. Speaking personally, I've only ever dabbled in the Gradius series, with the notable exception of Nemesis for the original Game Boy, one of my first ever games as a child, which I am still happy to have in my collection. Probably not a must-buy for me on day one, but whenever this does go on sale, I'll certainly take the leap, if for no other reason than just to familiarize myself more fully with the series and hopefully develop a deeper appreciation for a genre in which my knowledge is basic at best. But while we're on the subject of arcade re-releases, House of the Dead 2 Remake also drops on August 7th for Switch and PC. And I'm pretty excited for this one, mostly because I have fond memories of playing House of the Dead 2 on its home release on Dreamcast way back around 1999, and I do still have my physical copy of House of the Dead Remake for the Switch from a couple of years back. The basic plot is a small city gets overrun by hostile creatures, and AMS agents James Taylor and Gary Stewart rush to investigate before getting confronted with all manner of horrific creatures. It's schlocky, simple fun, and I just might take the leap on this one at launch, if for no other reason than to have some nostalgic fun with friends this Halloween. Granted, it wasn't the best performer on the original Switch, but who knows, maybe it'll run better on the Switch too, and it's a pretty natural pairing for that platform, what with the Joy-Cons and all. So if you do have any retro love for the light gun era, definitely worth keeping an eye on, particularly with updated visuals and a remastered soundtrack. Next up is a game from a series I've sadly neglected for the most part, but man, this origin story just might be the breaking point that gets me to finally start exploring this series fully, and that would be Mafia: The Old Country, releasing on August 8th for PS5, Xbox, and PC. Set in 1900 Sicily, The Old Country lets you uncover the origins of organized crime, promising a gritty mob story with a huge focus on authenticity. To that end, the weapons at your disposal will largely be limited to handguns, rifles, and shotguns, but you can also stealth around to take down your foes quietly as well. And I have to say, this game is an absolute stunner visually so far. Every time I see the trailer pop up in GameStop or browsing around YouTube, I can't help but stay glued to it because it just looks so polished, and that's especially exciting given that it's launching at a more affordable $49.99 price point, rather than the standard like $70 we've come to expect. If you're already a fan of the Mafia series, this is probably already on your radar, but if you've only checked it out on occasion or you're coming in brand new, this is very likely to be a fun jumping on point, and my personal prediction is that this will be a pretty pleasant surprise for a lot of people when it makes its debut next month. Next up, getting into some Nintendo quirkiness, we have Drag X Drive releasing on August 14th for Switch 2. And if you watched any of the preview footage leading up to the Switch 2 launch, then you're probably already familiar with this arcadey take on wheelchair basketball that relies on Joy-Con 2's mouse mode to mimic the motions of using a wheelchair. Each Joy-Con controls one wheel, and shooting the ball requires the use of motion controls, where you'll raise your arms and flick the Joy-Con while aiming at the hoop. Depending on the distance of the shot, you can earn more points, and while the whole thing takes place in a brightly colored arena, it also features ramps near the basket so you can dunk if you'd like. Honestly, it does look like a fun time for a budget $19.99 price, but I'll probably not take the leap out of the gate, mostly because this is clearly going to be a game best played pulled up to a desk for the best experience, and as someone who prefers to play on my comfy couch, I just don't think I get that much play out of it. But still, if you're looking for a coordinated arcade team sport with a unique twist on conventional controls, it might be worth a look. Moving on to more vehicular action, the creators of Abzu and the Pathless are bringing us Sword of the Sea for PS5 and PC on August 19th. In Sword of the Sea, you'll surf across magnificent waves of sand and glistening waters as you set out to restore a lost ocean. And honestly, just the idea that you get to cruise around on a hover sword is pretty appealing. Not to mention the environments do look pretty gorgeous so far, and I'm guessing this is a game where you're meant to sit and just sort of chill out, as much as you're meant to embark on some epic quest to unveil an ancient sea. And considering a lot of the ruins you'll be carving through pull double duty as skate park-esque elements to experiment with, it kinda looks like they smashed Breath of the Wild and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater together. Generally speaking, indie games with a unique style are my jam, and while it's not my number one pick for August, it definitely has my attention, and I'll be keeping a close eye on the reviews as we near that August 19th launch. Moving on just a little bit later, on August 26th, we have Gears of War Reloaded coming to Xbox, PC, and PS5. And I gotta say, despite the fact that this game is nearly 20 years old and is, I believe, the second remaster at this point, I have a real soft spot for Gears of War. In the lead up to the original's release, I must have watched that Mad World trailer like 100 times, and I would have lost my mind if Microsoft had recreated it. But anyways, notable features for this remaster include 4K textures, 60 FPS for the campaign and 120 FPS for multiplayer, HDR and VRR support, along with cross-progression and cross-play. So yeah, it definitely looks like this is shaping up to be the definitive Gears of War experience, and I'm glad Sony fans will finally get a crack at this one. And having played a little bit of its multiplayer last year, the core gameplay holds up tremendously well, and I just can't wait to face off against the Locust Horde for another round. And speaking of updated performance, we do have Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed World dropping on August 28th for Switch 2. And leave it to a voiceover only video where I can read off of a script for me to finally get the name of this game right, because I keep calling it Star-Crossed Road when it's Star-Crossed World. But anyways, like I already mentioned in that anticipated games for Switch 2 video from a couple weeks ago, I'm definitely pumped for this one. If you already own Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the upgrade to the improved performance and the Star-Crossed World expansion is about $20, or you can buy the whole thing standalone if you don't already own the Switch 1 version for $79.99. Also, quick note on that expansion, if you did want to save a little bit of dough, you can buy it digitally through GameStop for like an extra 5% off, or maybe even less if you have some points racked up in your account. Featuring a higher resolution and faster frame rates, this will no doubt be the definitive version of the Forgotten Land, and Star-Crossed World is looking to be a pretty vivid upgrade to what was already praised as an amazing Kirby experience. And since this will be my first time diving in outside of a little bit of time with the demo last year, I'm really looking forward to this one. And then also releasing on the 28th, we have another definitive version of a classic game with Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater releasing the same day for PS5, Xbox, and PC. And just like I'm pumped to revisit Gears and Kirby, since this is one of the few Metal Gears I haven't beaten, this is one of my most anticipated games of the year. I only have the most basic understanding of the Metal Gear Solid 3 story, but with these kind of visuals, I'm thrilled to be able to experience it fully for the first time in this version, and I'm glad they kept David Hayter's original voice lines, and that they brought him back in to record some new ones. Although I have to admit this is a little bit bittersweet, because it feels dirty playing a Kojima game that's been remade without his involvement after his falling out with Konami back around 2015 or so with the whole Silent Hills PT fiasco. But hey, without that split, we wouldn't have gotten Death Stranding or Death Stranding 2, which I'm very much enjoying right now, so silver linings, I guess. And despite my love for all things Kojima, I'm still going to check this one out day one. And then a day later, we're getting a gorgeous new entry in the Shinobi series with Shinobi Art of Vengeance dropping on August 29th for PS5, Xbox, PC, and Switch. Featuring hand-drawn 2D animation and coming from the same team who worked on Streets of Rage 4, Art of Vengeance has you playing as Shinobi Joe Musashi. After finding your village burned to the ground and your clan turned to stone, you set off on a path for vengeance to avenge your clan. And everything I'm seeing here looks totally top-notch. Brilliant visuals, fast-paced action that really comes to life, and hand-drawn animation, along with what I'm sure will be an incredible soundtrack, make for a pretty stellar package. I'm not so sure I'll get this one day one, since historically I haven't been the biggest Shinobi fan or anything, but I'm positive this will make its way into my library sooner or later, and I'm sure it'll look super tasty on an OLED Steam Deck or the Switch 2. But we'll see how the reviews shake out when it drops at the end of next month. And then finally we have Lost Soul Aside making its debut on PS5 and PC on the same day. And I actually mentioned this briefly in my Games Coming in May video a few months back, but it's a good thing I didn't do that considering it ended up getting pushed to August, I guess. It's a single-player action-adventure where you play as an orphan who must rise to face off against an evil empire, all while dimension-hopping to accomplish his goal. You're aided by a companion, Arena, who can transform into weapons and other elements to help you out with combat and exploration. And I don't know a lot beyond that really. The premise sounds a little bit by the numbers, but man, the visuals in this trailer and what combat they've shown looks very dynamic, and those crazy spiral runs he's performing look like traversal shaping up to be pretty thrilling as well. I'm probably going to have my hands full with Kirby and Metal Gear Solid 3, so I may not jump on this one immediately, but I'm definitely going to keep a close eye on this one because the last time I thought a game looked pretty appealing and I was tempted to pass on it, it was Expedition 33, which is definitely in the Game of the Year running right now alongside Death Stranding 2 and probably Donkey Kong Bonanza, so yeah, I'm definitely anxious to see how this one performs out of the gate. But that's going to be it for this one. Are there any games that I missed or you think should have been on this list? If so, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Speaking personally, Snake Eater is probably my top pick for the month, along with Kirby and Gears not far behind, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lost Soul Aside makes a pretty big splash. I just kind of wish all of these weren't coming out the exact same week, because that's going to be a lot to take in for multi-platform gamers. Coming up on the channel, I'll be highlighting some of the things I like more about the Steam Deck than the Switch 2, and vice versa. As always, thank you so much for your time and hanging out here with me on the channel. It really means a lot to me. Have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.